Hello and welcome. Coming to you from what I wish was Wiseman's View Overlook, but is just a simple podcast studio. I'm Josh.
And I'm John. And this pie from Famous Louise's is really good.
Yeah, strawberry rhubarb is my favorite. But this is the Geek ETC podcast, where we dive into all things you can geek out about, including the paranormal. And speaking of the paranormal, have you heard about all this UAP stuff that's going on?
Do you mean unidentified aerial phenomena?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, well, it's hard to miss. I follow a lot of like conflict news sources. And of course, you know, as soon as we start scrambling jets, I get a lot of news notifications from Atlas News or something like that.
Right. It's, you know, it's headlines and stuff that I've been, you know, it's one of those things that you always kind of like get excited or, you know, imagine seeing on the news or something, that the news anchor comes on and starts talking about, you know, this unidentified object has been seen over these, you know, various cities, you know, been tracked by our government and all this stuff. You know, being someone who's been fascinated with the topic for most of my life, you know, UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, aliens, all the like. It's been a very exciting little time here lately.
Except for it doesn't seem like we're giving them a red carpet welcome. If it was somebody else, I think we've been shooting AIM-9 sidewinders at them, and so instead of saying hello, we've been saying Fox 1, Fox 2, and blowing them up in the air, which is definitely really interesting, right? There's you know, very interesting. Like some people, like they've not really recovered some of this stuff for some reason. Like they've not been going after it. Like,
well, I read yesterday or something that they just said they're stopping the research, or the teams looking for any kind of debris. They just cut off anybody looking from it for some reason.
Sure they did.
Right.
Sure they did.
I mean, I will give it, you know, a full disclosure. My whole opinion on the whole thing is that, you know, there's no legitimacy to any of this.
Yeah.
But, you know, it might be some other balloon. I think there was one of them that they did, well, they say they confirmed that was a ham radio balloon. That there's a small group out of somewhere, I forget which one of these instances it was, but it was a balloon that used by amateur ham radios that they send up to kind of bounce their signals off of and communicate and stuff. And they just blew it out of the sky with a $500,000 missile.
With a $500,000 missile from a YF-22A Raptor, like
right.
get out. Yeah, can you imagine sending up your ham radio balloon and be like, "Mom, the Air Force just shot it down. Can I bum $50 more?" You know,
right? There's an F-22 and F-35 or something. Yeah,
hopefully an F-22. I don't like the F-35s.
They've used them both in these. I was reading.
I know F-16 too. I think.
Yeah, F-16 as well.
Yeah, and then we shot the one down over Canada, which I'm sure they just love. I'm sure the Moose were real excited about that explosion.
And on top of that, the one that was over, like, was it Lake Huron or one of the lakes that they missed the first shot?
Yeah, if that was the ham radio balloon, you know, like we've not had a peer-to-peer like air conflict. Probably the closest was the Vietnam War. You know, I think we shot down some planes in the Desert Storm, but it doesn't bode well for our air superiority. Why didn't they just turn on the Vulcan cannon?
They said that their missiles and all these guidance, or these, you know, guidance systems, all this stuff is designed to shoot fast moving targets.
Yeah, and the heat signatures make a difference for sure.
Thing. There's a lot of excuses.
There are a lot of excuses. All I know is Tom Cruise probably could have done it. Like I've seen Tom Cruise do some pretty amazing things, and
it's a possibility,
including keeping Scientology alive. And I bet he could have shot that thing down with just like one round from his like Beretta.
There's a chance.
He probably could have ejected and shot it down. That might have cost a little less, honestly, if he bailed out of like an F-15 or one of our older jets, you know?
True. Just like eject out of it and then land on it, Mission Impossible style, and, you know, hack into it or something.
Use a knife and
just cut it and ride the balloon down to the ground.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, man. It's so weird. You know, the Ukraine conflict. I remember, you know, like I said, I don't really follow a lot of like U.S. news, but I'm really big into conflict journalism, like independent conflict journalists, like Ground News and Atlas News and those kind of guys who do a lot of that. And I remember the Chechens were saying that they shot down like a UFO or something like that. Like the pro-Russian Chechens were like, we shot down a UFO, or UFO killed some of our, I can't remember which one, but that's kind of funny.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's been multiple stories, I mean, for a while, you know, of these unknown things showing up over other countries as well. And then there's also, you know, been a number of stories in the past couple of weeks of like a sudden increase in meteors coming in, or asteroids, or whatever, whichever they are at the time that they see them. But yeah, there's been a lot of cases of people videoing and seeing, falling objects through the sky. It could be meteors of some kind, or who knows what.
And they had the picture of, like, there was one UAP over Mosul in the Iraq War.
Yeah.
And I know that was geo-verified by some of those conflict journalists, but obviously I don't know if the object in it was real or not. But, it was definitely interesting, all the different sightings. And, it's not something that you and I are not necessarily, you and I have seen some weird things for sure in the past too.
That's true. We're going to get into some of that today.
Yes, we are.
But before that, I would like to remind you that if you would like to help support us and support our effort here, you can do that at our Patreon at patreon.com/geeketc podcast. For a couple of bucks a month, you can keep us loud, live, and independent, and keep the geeky entertainment coming your way.
Yeah, that way we don't have to like jump in with a whole bunch of random ads at the beginning that you skip through and don't care about, because it's not something that we did anything before, because we weren't getting sponsored by them. So
right.
we, like I said, we're a fledgling podcast. I say that all the time. This is episode 6, I think. And so, we're just excited to be here, but it does cost some money. And there's also we're going to be coming up with some new tiers here soon, and some fun little things you'll get out of those for just subscribing for a few bucks a month. So think about it. Geek ETC podcast on Patreon.
Yeah. Thanks.
And so we were talking about UAP stuff and paranormal things, and how we've seen some things. And the other day I made an Instagram poll, and I asked, has anybody experienced anything paranormal? I gave like a yes, no, maybe it was kind of weird, and like, I don't believe in paranormal. And we got no votes for the I don't believe in paranormal. And the majority of people said they had experienced something paranormal, with a few yeses, or a few no's, and a few maybes.
Well, I think also on that note, that because of the amount of, that paranormal, the topic of paranormal things is in the public eye now, in movies, TV shows, other podcasts. There's a lot of things talking about it, that a lot of this area has kind of been a little destigmatized, and people aren't afraid to talk about weird things they've experienced,
which is good, which is really good. And so right. I asked people if they had experienced anything to tell us, and so we got some short responses from some of our Instagram viewers, some of our Instagram followers. So one of our Instagram followers says, I kept seeing shadowy figures moving in my peripheral vision, or whenever I turned around, which that's spooky.
I've had instances like that, similar type of things, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back when I was a kid, me and my mom and my sister were all sitting in our living room watching TV, and kind of off the living room, we had this hallway that went down to me and my sister's bedrooms. The bedrooms were, across the hallway from each other. And all three of us were sitting there watching TV, and out of the corner of our eyes, we saw what looked like a little old lady hunched over walk from my sister's room to my bedroom.
Oh my God.
And we all stopped and kind of looked at each other in very confusion, and it freaked us out for sure.
I believe it.
Yeah.
One of our other followers says they heard a woman singing at night on the property of what used to be an old plantation.
Oh, geez.
And we're here in the South, and God, I'm not from here originally, but the South obviously has a storied history with a lot of weird paranormal things. And that would scare me to death.
For sure.
It was probably just an emo person, like, at the cemetery hanging out and like singing Avril Lavigne off key.
Could be.
But, I don't...
being in any place like that, and if you just hear some distant singing of any kind, that's up there on the scary list.
Oh, yeah. That's the neck hairs are going up for sure.
The only thing maybe even above that is like you hear a baby crying.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you're just in, near some old rundown abandoned thing, you hear a baby crying. I mean, I've heard many stories of, in folklore and stuff, that either things, I don't know if it's like the Wendigo or some of these other cryptid creatures, that they try to, reel in their prey by mimicking the sound of a baby crying.
Well, I know like cougars, I know like mountain lions, the woman screaming, people like, what is a woman screaming? That's just that, wow, that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Screaming at nighttime. Like you get like some of that from them. So that's pretty scary. One thing that I think is scary, and one of our followers sent us, they said, does sleep paralysis count? or someone pulling your blankets off with no other explanation.
Well,
Yes, that does count. I even think I responded to this follower and said, yeah, that counts, because I've not experienced sleep paralysis. I know some friends that have.
I have.
Ooh, and I don't like it. And my bed is my safe space of everywhere else.
Just don't let your foot hang off too far.
I don't mind my foot hanging off too far. It doesn't bother me. I can keep my feet outside of the covers.
That scared me to death as a child.
Nah.
Like, I couldn't stick my foot out. If you're hot, a lot of people will stick their foot out to cool down. My wife does that all the time. But as a kid, like, that was like, it scared me to death. Just having your foot out. Something's going to get you. Yeah,
that doesn't bother me. But the idea of somebody like me not being able to move, and then dude,
it's terrifying.
Like, I'm a big dude. I grapple. I'm a good grappler. And I can't like, even just being held down in grappling, that would really irk me. And I can't imagine being in my own bed. In
your safe space,
in my safe space, and being held down. I would be and not able to move, and then seeing a person or a figure or something like that. Ugh.
Dude,
count me out.
One of my old jobs, I worked in security at this hotel, and this hotel's like 100 years old, and it has a lot of creepy paranormal stories about it to begin with. But in our security base, we had this old couch. I don't know if it was an original couch from the hotel, but it was really, really old leather couch. We had it in there, and we would literally trade off and like take turns taking naps on it whenever we were super slow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ideally, they didn't want us to be doing anything because we were solving problems, but we would take turns napping on that couch. And every single time I would fall asleep on that couch, I would wake up at some point and my eyes would be open. I could look around the room, but I could not move. I could, like, every single time. And I would try to say something or make a noise, and it would just, in my head, I was just, slight little murmurings and stuff, but I couldn't actually say or scream or do anything. And I was stuck on this couch, and I could see the other people around. And then eventually I would completely wake up and could move. But it happened every time I fell asleep on this couch.
In the words of the Gen Z folks that might be listening, I would say less, fam. I'm out. So I'm glad you don't work there anymore, because I not a chance. The first time that happened, I would have been out of there. I can't.
Yeah. Ugh. I haven't really had that happen when being at home in my own bed. I don't think. I've had a lot of weird kind of nightmares that seemed like that, but I could tell they were dreams and stuff. But as far as pure sleep paralysis, yeah, it was every time I fell asleep on that couch, it happened. Yeah, for me, I have just really stupid dreams. Like my IQ level drops significantly when I'm asleep. Like, I like to think I'm of average intelligence, and then when I like I'm waking up out of a dream, I'm like, oh, I killed a person, like I gotta bury their body, like the cops are after me, it's like a whole thing. Right.
And then I'm like, I didn't do any of that. Didn't do any of that. None of this makes any sense to me.
I've had a lot
I'll message people like random stuff after I wake up, and I'll be like, I've not talked to that person in years. Why did I say something to them?
Right. Yeah. I've had similar things where like the dream crosses over into reality, but mine's usually, I'm fighting somebody and I ended up kicking my wife as I'm waking up. That I know this one dream that I had it was essentially a battle royale sort of situation, like PUBG. And I was hiding in the second floor of this house, and this guy came running up, and I Spartan kicked him down the stairs. But in reality, I Spartan kicked my wife in the bed.
Ooh, that's rough.
And then she woke me up and smacked me. And was like, "What are you doing?"
Just because it's on top. My wife literally, I woke up and she was still asleep, and I tried to cuddle her or whatever. And she rolled over to her back this morning and was like, "Get out, no." And she was in the middle of like some nightmare.
Oh, geez.
And I didn't know it, because normally when she's in a nightmare, she's making noise. And I wake her up from it, because she dreams, like I probably have sleep apnea or something, because I don't think I hit REM sleep that often. But she's like, always having these nightmares. And especially like if we see snakes or something, or like, something on National Geographic before we go to bed, or spiders or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Her dreams, she's like, I'm going to have nightmares. So
that sucks. I know that feeling though.
But speaking of my wife, she is one of our followers, and she did respond to it. And this is interesting. She says, when we said, "What's a paranormal thing you've seen?" and her exact words were, "That dang glowworm."
Oh, the glowworm.
The glowworm. So today's episode, we're geeking out about what I like to call the ghost lights of Appalachia.
Right. Or the Brown Mountain Lights.
The Brown Mountain Lights. the Brown Mountain Lights are interesting phenomena. So Josh and I are natives to Western North Carolina. Well, not natives. I'm not a native. Josh is a native to Western North Carolina.
I've been here long enough.
I've been here long enough. I've been here long enough to. I don't have the accent necessarily, but I live here. I've lived here for a long time.
Right.
And I was never familiar with it when I moved here, and I wasn't familiar with it really until the first time that you and I went with your dad.
Yeah, me and my dad went camping that time up there.
And the place that we've always gone, and we've witnessed this phenomena numerous times with numerous people, is in the Linville Gorge in the national park at an overlook called Wiseman's View.
Right. And for some kind of, I guess, background clarification, these Brown Mountain Lights, they are often reported as ghost lights, or, some people attribute them to some kind of ball lightning, and we'll get into some kind of theories about it here in a little bit. But they apparently, like, the earliest published reference was in around 1910, about the time that the same kind of electric lightning type of stuff was being seen around the area. So it's been 100+ years since people have been at least published reporting, but there's rumors and stories that go back a long time, back into the
generations,
native history and stuff from around the area.
My dad, who is a native to Eastern Tennessee, told me he was familiar with it, and he always said, like, some of the theories that he heard when he was younger was like there was always it was a slave who had like escaped from a plantation, or with his like lantern or something like that. And then there was also something about like the Cherokee, the Eastern Band of Cherokee, have long storied history in Western North Carolina. And we live fairly close to the Eastern Band Cherokee reservation, and that there was a battle or something like that had taken place. And, these were the people out looking for their casualties or something to that effect. But the first publication, I've actually seen several things on this, and this was the U.S. Geological Survey, I think, was talking about these sites. And they had gone out there and looked. I'm not sure if it was from the Brown Mountain Overlook. There's a separate overlook off of Interstate,
right? Yeah.
Or off like a highway.
Yeah.
And then there's the Wiseman's View area, and they were saying, "Oh, it's just train lights." These silly country bumpkins are thinking these are train lights moving through the valley or whatever are it. And from Wiseman's View, there's no train tracks. There's no train tracks there.
No.
And that's where we've seen everything.
Right.
So the Linville Gorge is located, what is it, Marion, Brown, like Avery County, something like that, McDowell County?
Yeah.
Burke County. It's actually Burke County.
Right. Yeah. There we go. Near Morganton.
Near Morganton. Yes. So, and the Linville Gorge is a neat spot. It's beautiful. I've heard people call it the Grand Canyon of the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And it is like a beautiful, it's way smaller than the Grand Canyon is, but it is a beautiful gorge. The Wiseman's View overlook is amazing during the daytime. The pie I referenced in the intro, we like going, there's a little hole in the wall, rinky dink place where you're like sitting in 3 different counties, famous Louise's.
Yeah.
And it's okay dinner, but their pie, they got really good pie.
The pie there is amazing. There's been multiple times we've just like, you can buy a whole pie from them to take it back home. We've done that. Yeah,
especially your mom demands tribute, so typically we bring her back a strawberry rhubarb pie.
That's true.
So the Linville Gorge, if you're from Western North Carolina or you're visiting Western North Carolina, Steve Harvey says come to Western North Carolina, so maybe you should too. Yeah, there's like a video where he's like, somebody's like, hey, where should I go on this trip? And then Steve Harvey's like, she wanted him to throw a dart at the board of the U.S. and he takes it and he just grabs the dart and he takes it right to Asheville. He's like, go to the Blue Ridge Mountains, go to the Appalachia Mountains.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, no, I wanted you to throw it. He's like, I'm not going to throw it. He's like, you go right here and you'll love it. Go up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, do whatever.
Wow. Okay.
And we really do live in a place that's extremely beautiful, but there are some weird things that happen around here. And like I said, the South is home to a lot of strange things. So,
right. The Brown Mountain Lights particularly were one of, if not one of the first instances of that we both experienced in this area.
Yes. One of the first things I ever experienced too, where I was just like dumbfounded.
Right.
And if anybody's ever like trying to get like, I wonder what that place looks like. If you've ever seen The Last of the Mohicans, that was actually, it took place in the Adirondack Mountains in the movie, but it was filmed in the Linville Gorge, like, Table Rock and Hawksbill Mountain, which are two of the main like mountains that we see from Wiseman's View.
Right. That makes sense. But so our kind of origin with this, we'll just kind of go through our first little experience there and kind of talk about what we first saw.
So Josh and I and his father, Jeff, we were all going on a camping trip.
Yeah, up at Wiseman's there, as you drive up there's a very rough dirt road that goes up through there and filled with potholes usually, but dotted on either side of this road are campsites.
And they're some of them are big, some of them are small, like, they're definitely car camp spots for sure.
For sure. So we would often go camping up there.
We were excited because it was going to be my first time up there. I think you've been up there before, right?
I think I had been up there maybe once or twice beforehand.
And I had been up there, but never gone all the way up. I have been to, there's the mines over there. The caverns, the Linville Caverns.
Right.
And I had been to the falls, which are at the very bottom of that road.
Yep.
But I had never been, I wish I had gone to Wiseman's View back then.
Yeah.
But going up there with your dad was awesome. We went up there, we found a great parking spot, like a great place to pull in.
The campsite we used up there was the one I've always, I haven't stayed at any other campsite. The number of times
I've always just wanted to go to that campsite.
Because it's wide open, but it has like a narrow entrance so you can park the car in, and it kind of blocks your campsite out.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
And there's a nice, like a little hole in the tree for you to like put like a trash bag. Put like a trash bag in. And, it's also a really easy walk without having to hike a mountain.
Yeah, you can walk from the campsite to Wiseman's View. It's maybe a mile and a quarter or something like that.
If even, probably a mile back, total round trip.
Yeah, half mile. It's not far at all. It's a nice little walk.
Yeah, super easy. So I remember going up there with you and Jeff, and we had gone up. We had secured some stuff. We had kind of like got our campsite set up, our tent set up, and gone up there, and we did a little hiking outside of the bounds where we were supposed to go. We kind of hiked down.
Climbed down the wide over there.
We went to the cliffs, and we were looking off of those, and then we kind of hiked down into a little bit further into some kind of rough terrain. I was just waiting to get bitten by like an eastern rat, eastern diamondback, because that was kind of rough area.
It was, but we did find under that one little cliff area there was like a little campsite.
That was cool. And we used to go back down there all the time. Remember, we go back down there to that. Look, there was like a little grate where people had used it to cook on. Yep. I bet that's like a nice little cove to like
for sure
to camp in. And did we go to? I think we cooked out that night, didn't we? We didn't go to Famous Louise's like we normally.
No,
we didn't.
No.
We had actually made dinner at the campsite.
Oh, yeah. We usually make like hot dogs or something simple like that.
And I remember you guys telling me about the lights. You and your dad both telling me about the lights, and I was like, I don't know. Like, this just sounds weird.
He was kind of telling them to me as well, because I hadn't seen them yet. So he had known about them and seen them, and was telling both of us about them basically,
which is so cool. I'm so glad he shared it with us, because it has been one of those things that's like a huge deal for both of us. And I remember that night we finished dinner. It was starting to get dark. Maybe not completely dark. It wasn't completely dark because we had that encounter on the way to the Brown Mountain, or to the Wiseman's View. And as we were walking, we came across that huge, giant spider. Remember?
Oh, Jesus.
And as we know,
that was on the way back.
Was it on the way baback?
I feel like it was on the way back.
Well,
either way, it doesn't matter.
It was on the way back.
Horrible.
I think it might have been on the way back because we were scared already.
Yes.
So we went to. There's the Wiseman's View has it has like a small parking area where you can just drive right up to it, and there's like a little asphalt trail that leads right down to the overlook. It's a very easy access thing. Like anybody can get to it. You can get to it on your Rascal scooter. If you want. It
has like a low incline path as well that kind of curves back and forth. You could either take a walker or some kind of wheelchair if you needed to.
Yeah, and I think we took some chairs down there. Yep. And there are two kind of like little cylindrical rock outposts that you can sit at, or you're supposed to stand on, but we go up there for the long haul. And I think we took some snacks and we went down, and it wasn't long before we spotted something, and that was a golden orange like light on one of the plateaus of Table Rock Mountain. I thought on the far right side.
Yeah, it was just off the left side of Table Rock, because the left side it's a flat kind of top mountain, and then off the left side there's a steep cliff. And so right off the left side is where it appeared.
Yeah, and when I first saw it, to me, I was very skeptical, and I thought, that is campfire. That's what I thought it was.
Either that, or I've also seen, there's airplanes kind of fly that direction sometimes, and maybe it's headlights from an airplane or something was also a potential, because I have seen that specific thing there. But
yeah, this I specifically remembered being like, I think that's a campfire.
Right.
Because I'm talking about the stationary one.
No.
The one, okay. So, and it wasn't long before, on the opposite side of Table Rock, another similarly colored.
Yeah.
First off, the first light changed colors. It blinked white for a second. It changed
Yeah.
It was this golden hue, and then it turned white, or white-ish, or bluish, or something to that effect.
And on top of that, we eventually kind of noticed that it wasn't really, above ground or anything. It was literally off the side of the cliff, hovering off of it. It wasn't necessarily above ground or anything.
Yeah, and then the other one popped up, and there was no question about the other one on the other side of the plateau.
Right.
What, a half mile, a quarter mile away, hundreds of yards away.
Yeah.
That here comes another light, and this one is a similar golden, orangish hue, and it is doing these just weird motions in the sky, and that's, for me, was when it started to get very interesting.
Like, it was at that point that grabs your attention, and you're like, okay, maybe there's something to this, and I'm all of our senses were kind of heightened at this point, and now we're focused in on what we were looking at. So we were, all three of us were scanning the entire gorge, both mountains, the kind of ridge line above the mountains, looking for anything to pop up anywhere around us. So we were all on scan.
I was completely tunnel vision.
Oh, for sure.
I was completely tunnel vision, and I'm looking, and remember, like, it was getting dark, and the hairs on the back of my head are like standing up, because I just don't understand what's going on.
Right.
I'm like, is this dangerous? No. I mean, Jeff's seen it before.
That's the creepy thing about it, is the aspect of the unknown. You know, that's what's scary about it, is that you don't know, and like your brain can't logically come up with a reasoning for it.
It made no sense. Like, I was like, oh, it's not a plane, that's not anything. And then it got worse, because we were up there alone, you and I and Jeff. We were all up there alone, all three of us.
Yeah, there was a couple other people hanging out, but they had moved on since it got dark. They went back to the campsite or whatever.
They were gone, and that's when I'm sitting there, and I begin to hear this noise. I spun around looking for any type of weapon I could find. I heard that noise. I knew for sure it was the lights. They were there to get me, and we were all doomed. I was ready to fight that light. I wasn't sure what to do. I was like, well, should I grapple it? Should I punch it? The noise came again, louder and louder and louder. I looked to the top, and I see a very dim light. It was
right behind us at the top of the stairs.
At the top of the stairs. It was a hillbilly fella and his wife, I believe, and maybe a teenage kid.
Yep.
And they were using a Noah hand wind crank radio, and they has the attached flashlight, and they were charging it up with that little winding noise.
Yes.
But at that time, I knew for sure that I was about to die, and I was ready to lay down my life in combat with that light.
Right. All three of us, were on edge already, senses heightened, and then that wind up sound just suddenly behind us at the top of the stairs. And yeah, as we turn around, this light shining on us, in the moment, it was terrifying. It was terrifying.
And, we look up, and sure enough, it's just, a fella with a Dale Earnhardt jacket on or something like that, who, that was his, hey, let's just take the old wind up flashlight out,
Yeah.
It was Australian.
Got your solar panels on there, AM, FM radio.
Exactly. But we had been watching those lights. We've been watching this thing. It wasn't like this was like a quick thing. We had been watching these lights for over an hour.
Yeah, at least we'd been out there at least an hour or so.
And so I remember going back to the campsite that night, and that's when we saw the huge spider, I think, because Josh was already a little on edge. And then him seeing a spider that was as bad as it can get for him. But we went back to our camp that night, and I was hooked. I was hooked on, what is it? I really want to know. And it's just one of those things that like, it was a mystery to me that seemed worth finding more out about, or seeing again.
Right.
Like I knew that was a memory that I'm always going to have.
Yep.
It's never going to leave me. And I'll never forget the first time I've seen him. And I don't think I've forgotten any of the other times I've been up there.
It's something that it was worth it. You're like, I got to show other people this.
Yes.
Not only do I need to see this again and to confirm what I'm seeing kind of thing, you know, like approach it with a somewhat scientific method, but you're like, I need to bring other people too, so that I know I'm not seeing stuff and I have people to corroborate my stories.
And that's where I want to kind of bring up that I am lucky enough. So Josh is a borderline celebrity.
Yeah. Well,
you are, because so Josh is, we have gone up there on numerous times. Oh, and yeah. Josh is a proficient photographer.
An amateur photographer, but
you're a good amateur photographer. You're very capable. Josh is the person that edits these podcasts. Josh is the very technical person when it comes to equipment. He's the guy that knows how to set up, sound systems, and he makes a good roadie. He makes a good photographer. He makes a good IT technician. He can do all that kind of thing. That is his niche. And we have gone up there, and Josh has taken pictures on numerous occasions.
Right. On that note, so it was after that first time that it prompted me that I'm like, I gotta find a way to try and capture this. So it was not long after that first trip that I did some research and bought a DSLR camera, like a higher end camera that I could, put a high zoom lens on to try and capture anything that I could see.
And the next time we went up there, it was just you and I, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Might have been.
It was just me and you.
You have a better memory than I do.
Elephant never forgets. It was just me and you. Like, we didn't have my wife or anybody else there. It was just you and I. We went up there ourselves. This time we had it down pat, and this has kind of been our running thing. Get up there early enough, but not early enough where we have to wait a long time for night. Go see the gorge and its beauty in the daytime. Yeah. Go to Famous Louise's, eat pie with ice cream.
Yeah. By the time you're done with that, it's, getting a little darker outside, and you can head back up to the
return at nighttime. Don't get eaten by the locals. Get up there, find a spot to sit, and really start watching out for what we can see in the valley and on the hills and on.
Yeah, we'll kind of go down to one of those little overlooks and get set up. We'll set up our, camp chairs. I'll set up my tripod with my camera and my zoom lens and get it kind of, focused correctly on the far mountains before it gets too dark, and get that all set. And then we just kind of settle in and wait for it to get good and dark.
And then we just look, and Josh and I have had pretty good luck up there. I've heard people talking about them trying to see the Brown Mountain lights from the Brown Mountain overlook off the highway.
Yeah.
And it seems very hit or miss.
Right.
But
I've heard people say too that, even at Wiseman's, they said they've been going up there 20 years and they've never seen anything.
That's surprising.
And which is crazy.
That's insane.
In the, maybe dozen times I've been up there, there's only been maybe once that I didn't see something.
If even, I think there's a lot of times we've seen stuff, but we just didn't know.
Yeah.
That's true. We didn't have pictures or anything like that to really look at it.
Right.
And so, the next time Josh and I went up there, he set up his camera and he was talking me through his method. He was taking these what were you using, Josh, to do that?
It was so I had a Canon T4i camera at the time with a 75 to 300 millimeter lens. This is all for all the, technical camera geeks out there. And then I was typically taking the photos at 20 to 30 second exposures, depending on, where it was at and what it needed to, because it was pitch black. You needed that long of an exposure to get, any source of visible light to accumulate.
So it allows you to draw in more light.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were up there and we began to see these things down in the valley, some kind of moving closer to the mountains themselves. Always on the opposite side of the river from the gorge, though, is pretty much what I remember. I think maybe once or twice we had seen stuff on our side of the gorge.
There was one point that I had seen, I felt like we had seen a couple things right below us off the edge. Like, kind of looking down over the little overlook, right below us, we saw a couple lights off the edge a couple times. But most everything was usually further away.
It's usually on the other side. There's a river that runs through the gorge, and usually it's on the opposite side of that river where
Right.
the Table Rock and Hawksbill Mountains are, where we would typically see these lights. And I remember Josh taking these pictures, and he would take the pictures, and we would see these red lights or blue lights. And oftentimes when we would see from up there, I would tend to notice there was like a red or orange light, and sometimes that would seem to change colors. And there was often dancing blue lights that would like orbit those or move quickly around them. And Josh would zoom in on his viewfinder, or not your viewfinder, your screen.
Yeah, on the screen on the camera. I would take the picture, and then the little preview would pop up, and we'd look at it, and you could zoom in further on the actual screen to see what was on there. And so we would check the pictures after taking them to see if what I had got a picture of.
And they were like you're looking at them, you're seeing them from a distance, and every time Josh would zoom in on it, you'd see like where the light had moved during that time period, and you're like,
right,
what is this? And it got to one picture, which is you end one of your videos that you have.
Yeah, so if you want to see some of these photos I'm talking about, you can visit my personal channel on YouTube, which is Arc Adventures. You can just search on YouTube, Brown Mountain Lights, Arc Adventures, and there's 3 videos up there that have a lot of these photos on there. You can go take a look at them. And
we'll be featuring a lot of them on our Instagram and everything as well.
Yeah, we'll post them up there too.
But Josh, I remember Josh zoomed on the last one. And first off, I want to say that I have no idea what these lights are.
No.
I don't claim to know what they are.
Neither one of us do.
I'm not trying to say that they're ghosts. I'm not trying to say that they're aliens. I'm not trying to say that they are ball lightning. They're plasma, they're swamp gas. I don't know.
No.
I just know that I've seen them.
Yeah.
But the last picture that Josh zoomed in on, right, and which is at the end of his first Brown Mountain Lights video,
yep.
his when it zoomed in on that on his viewfinder, this is over a period of a couple hours.
Yeah.
Josh is taking these pictures, and we zoom in on it, and of course your mind's racing. Like, what is it?
Right. And each picture is getting more weird and more crazy looking. And
when he zooms in on it, we see what looks to be like these blue ethereal beings surrounding something.
Yeah.
And
there's it looks like head and like shoulders and like a body form.
Yeah. And you're picking that stuff out, and you're like, what is that?
Yeah. What the heck is that?
Let's go back to the car. And we left right after we saw that picture, because we had already been like on edge, taking these pictures. And it's also, it's one of those things. It is quiet up there.
Yep.
You can just hear the dull roar of the river running down below you.
Yep.
And as long as there's no country bumpkin up there with his wind up radio,
right,
it's a pretty quiet area.
Exactly.
And it is one of those things. I remember looking at that picture, him zooming in on the viewfinder.
And there was this moment of pause between us where there was just kind of silence and processing, and then this like unanimous, yeah, I think we're done for tonight.
That looks, oh my God.
Oh Lord.
And then even worse, now that we've discovered the secret of these lights, that they're these blue ethereal beings, quote unquote. This is just, at the moment you're thinking this, then you got to go back to your car and drive down this horrible rutted road in the nighttime, and I'm like, God, I'm about to fight off these lights. I got to fight off a Yeti, a Sasquatch here, not to mention
Mothman somewhere.
Mothman, the Jersey Devil.
They're all up here.
Whoever it is, they're after me because they know we took a good picture of them.
They know we're aware of them, and we've outed them, so we're not making it out.
So I remember going home, we showed your family, we were showing friends, and we're just like, man.
Oh, I remember whenever we got home and I hooked my laptop up to the TV in the living room and kind of mirrored it up there as a second monitor. And as I got specifically that last picture, my mom, jaw agape,
they look like little people.
Walked up to the TV like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and this is on the big screen then, and we're like all feeling it. And I'm just happy to be at your house at that point. And it was one of those things that was just like, oh my God, this is so weird what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't explain it. I don't know what it was. I don't know what these things are. I don't know what the lights were. But you know what we did? We kept sharing it. We kept going up there with different people.
Different friends, different family members.
Because we would show them. We say, hey, look at these pictures. And I'm like, eh. Or you tell them about it. I'm like, I don't know. And I remember we went up there with one of my friends, Ben. And, we went up there several times. We saw numerous things. But we went up there with my friend, Ben. And it was you, me, and Ben, correct? Just us three?
I think so.
Just us three. And, he had an interest in that kind of thing, but he's a very skeptical guy. He's like, it's probably nothing. It's just car headlights or whatever.
Right.
And we did the same thing. We set up Josh brought his tripod, brought his camera. We brought our snacks, and now with a third person, we were up there. And Josh this time we were seeing more activity on the mountains across from us, both on Hawksbill and Table Rock. Yeah. And they are a pretty good distance apart. Not to mention, this is all pretty rough terrain. I have a guy I work with who I've been actually training him for work, and he's a hiker, and he's been down the gorge. And he says it's a very, very hard hike to hike the Linville Gorge. Mm-hmm. And when you see some of these things moving at the speed that they do at night on the rocky terrain that you see from the daytime, you're like, man, you would have to be like Usain Bolt / Alex Honnold, to make that kind of distance.
Because in a few of the pictures, again, it was the exposure time was 20 to 30 seconds, and the light that is being captured, the camera's on a tripod, so it's not moving, but the light is moving within the picture. So, some simple logic tells you that over that course of 20, 30 seconds, whatever this light was moved that amount of distance. And, I haven't done the math on it myself to see, what the distance and the time was, but, someone smarter than me could do that, I'm sure, measuring the height of trees and all that stuff. But there isn't a lot of logical or plausible way that, a person could cover that distance, if they had a headlamp on or something, could cover that amount of distance at night in the pitch black over this rough terrain.
And not to mention, some of these times early on, we're talking early to like mid 2010s, early 2010s. And I think that one was like 2017 or something.
Or 2014.
2014, maybe.
Yeah.
That one was 2014? Yeah, it had to be later than that, I would think.
2014 to 2017 are when most of them were.
Okay. And so really, drones weren't even as popular. Like people didn't, drones have taken off in the last like 6 years, but especially that first time when we were up there with your dad. Mm-hmm. And then not to mention, when we were up there with your dad was probably 2010.
Somewhere around there.
2010. And then when we went up there for your first set of pictures that we put on, that you've done on YouTube, those were probably
2012, 2014, somewhere around there.
I think 2013 actually.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And they were like the drones weren't that prevalent then. It wasn't like, oh, this is somebody with drones like goofing around or whatever up there.
No, commercially available drones were not really applicable or affordable thing at that time. Yeah.
And so when we went to with my friend, now jumping back forward to the time that we were up there for your second video that you have on YouTube, they were also in the air doing things. They were also in the air moving during that 20 to 30 second exposure time. One of them looks like it goes up and does like a whole little whirlwind thing.
Yeah, it's got like spirals and all kinds of just very
weird motion.
Yeah, just weird motions, kind of like non-uniform movements to it.
And we're seeing, and these are like the same, these are like, but this time they were like very blue lights.
Yes.
And we were seeing the same thing miles away on Hawksbill. So you were taking pictures of Table Rock, the road, with all that, not, I don't know if that's not a road, the trails and everything where that light seemed to be coming from, all the way up to Table Rock. And then also the top of Hawksbill, and even some of the lights coming off of the ledge of Hawksbill and floating above the trees at Hawksbill. Mm. And my friend was just like, obviously it's a hiker. He made that joke after the one in the air. We zoomed in on it. He's like, clearly it's a hiker, because I think we had been up there and some local fella who might have been a CIA operative just trying to take us off because he knew we were on to him.
Right.
But he was like, it's just people riding four-wheelers up there. That's just hikers. And then Josh takes the picture of the one above the trees, and we're looking at it after that dude's long gone. Ben's just looking at the viewfinder, and he's like, oh, obviously that's just a hiker. Obviously that's just a dude on a four-wheeler, which, maybe if it was, you've been playing Hogwarts Legacy.
I was getting ready to say
maybe
that.
maybe if they've got an
enchanted
ATV.
An ATV of some kind.
With like the brightest blue headlights.
Yeah, that flies through the air.
Yeah. Harry Potter would have had a fun time with that one.
True. Very true.
Get the old, what's like one of those big name brands, like the Grizzly or?
I honestly, the first thing that popped in my head was Mongoose.
Mongoose, yeah,
from Halo.
Oh yeah, but yeah. Well, we'll just call it that because I like that better.
The Mongoose.
You get on a Mongoose up there. It was crazy. And it's another one of those times where we were looking at all these, and we had our fill because it just got nerve wracking. And yeah, we left, and we have been up there so many times and seen so many weird things. And one of those things that we can talk about is the glowworm.
Oh yeah.
And this was with me, my wife, you, and one of your friends.
Yeah.
And we were up there, and we hadn't seen a lot of activity that night.
Yeah, as far as lights and stuff, it was kind of a slower night. Like maybe there was a couple small ones, but it wasn't anything super strange or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't like And my wife had seen them before as well, and we had been up there. She and I had been up there several times by ourselves as well, and seen interesting things up there. But we had. We hadn't seen a whole lot, but there was this strange, and we'll post a picture of this on Instagram because we've got the picture of it. There was this strange glow caterpillar, glowing, iridescent.
We turned around, and on the stairs behind us, we noticed a little glow. We're like, what the heck is that?
It looked like somebody had looked like a dripping of like toxic sludge or something like that. Like, like that bright green
neon kind
radiation, like radioactive looking material.
If there was a tiny caterpillar in Fallout, a rad caterpillar or something, that's what it would look like.
That's what it would look like. And that's what we saw. And Josh has got pictures of it, and it's just such a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I think they're called glowworms is what they're actually called. And they're, for a while though, I couldn't even find them. I remember like looking at like glow in the dark worms and like couldn't find them.
Yeah.
But there is that they exist. It's not something that we didn't. It wasn't like a larva,
an alien species of some kind, or
it wasn't like some larva that got left behind,
right,
or something like that while they were trying to sneak up on us and whatever. But that night was super interesting, and I'm going to tell the story from my memory, and I'll let you tell it from yours.
Okay.
So. And this isn't rehearsed, by the way. This is Josh and I just talking about it. We don't have scripts or anything like that. So there might be a little difference in between what we say here. Mm-hmm. We were packing up to go because we had not seen that much activity. And my wife, we were just dating at the time, as I'm putting on my backpack that had our snacks in it or whatever, and grabbing the chair, I turned to walk up the stairs to go back towards where we would walk to our cars. My wife, who does not cuss, right, at all, says, "What the?" Which gets my attention immediately. I turn around and I see what I've described to every person that I felt comfortable telling this story to. This bright blue beam illuminating the entirety of the Linville Gorge. Not a little bit, not like a flashlight beam. It illuminated all of it. It was so weird. The closest thing that I can account it to would be the lights that they send up for 9/11 in the place of the Twin Towers, as far as brightness and like volume and color. The light shined through the entire valley, pointed towards us on the overlook, and then up into the sky. And that, I've been in a lot of sketchy situations. I've been in a lot of dangerous situations in my life. And that was by far one of the scariest things that's ever, just because it didn't make any sense. It was one of those things, we had been up there, we hadn't seen a whole lot. And, my wife saying that automatically had me on edge. And when I saw that, there was no question to me that there was no flashlight on Earth that could do that. There was, there was no flashlight in what year was this?
This was in 2014, I believe.
2014. There was no flashlight in 2014 that could do that. There was no. You would have had to. It would have had to been like a Hollywood production with like mirrors and everything, and it's shining at us towards the gorge or towards the overlook, and then straight up into the sky. I was in full combat mode. I was ready. I was like primal, like my was primally angry and like ready. I talked about the first time. I don't know if I could punch a light, but
right.
I was ready to fight whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was scary. So I'll let you tell it from your point of view, because you saw more before I did.
Right.
And you also might have better insight in it than I did, but that's what I remember from that night. And it was the most unexplainable thing I've ever seen in my life. and it didn't match any of the other things that we had seen up there. I've never seen that again.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, that's obviously a very similar kind of a story, but from my perspective, so yeah, similar kind of thing. We've been up there, multiple hours, not seeing a lot. We were all kind of a little disappointed, because of what we'd seen before. So I'm like, all right, let's just pack it up. So everybody's, putting their chairs up and getting stuff in their backpacks, this and that, and I have my camera on my tripod. I turn my camera off and I loosen the head mount for the tripod that holds the camera on. And, as I'm loosening that, the camera kind of tilts down a little bit as it's kind of loose. And then at that moment, yeah, right in front of me, this beam of light shoots up out of the middle of the gorge. And yeah, kind of a whitish, bluish light. It shines straight up. And as soon as I see that, I flip my camera back on and try to tighten the thing back up on the head to try and, point it at as close as I could to get some picture of what I was seeing. Yeah, and while this was happening, the light moves around very quickly and kind of points away from us towards, I think you can see Lenore off in the distance, and kind of scans the gorge and then shines directly at us up on the overlook and lights us all up. And I at some point in this, I did snap a picture. It, because I was moving it and it wasn't focused and everything, it didn't capture much, but I do have a small little glimpse in the corner of one of my pictures of the light. It's not really, discernible in any way. You can't tell what it is or anything, unfortunately. But I was able to capture just the tiniest little hint of whatever it was, which is awesome. But yeah, that definitely was another one of those moments that after that, there was this pause and silence amongst all of us, not knowing what was about to happen. And then after, a good beat or two, when nothing did happen, we all just took off back towards the car. We grabbed our stuff and just headed up the stairs as quick as we could.
It was palpably the tension in the air was palpable. It was like, I know my wife was scared. I know your friend was scared.
Yeah.
I know I was scared. I'm sure you were scared.
Oh yeah.
And, I don't know what that light is. I don't know where it came from. I'm not making suggestions that it's anything, but I'm telling you that there's nothing that I can imagine at that time in what year, 2014,
yeah,
that, you see now, like on YouTube, like the world's brightest flashlight, and they do this thing and it like looks like daytime. And I imagine sometimes it's actually just an edit, like a cut where they. I
mean, some of those flashlights,
some of them are,
right.
But the fact that it illuminated.
Yeah, it was a focused beam.
A focused beam that seemed like, and it illuminated from when I remember seeing like a swath of the entire valley.
Yeah.
Blue.
Yeah.
And then right at us. And I remember Josh and I have talked before about this. Like, do you think we lost time up there? Like, what if something happened to us? We just have no idea.
Oh, yeah, they had a loss of time.
We had like some loss of time.
12 minutes passed and we just don't remember.
Which I don't think that happened.
No.
But when it shined up at us, it's that very stereotypical like 90s, the blue light hits you, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, hand over your eyes, but this was coming from the ground.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously it wasn't a camper. It was something unexplainable. One of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. And I can't imagine it's one of those things that if answers in the universe, I'd want to know what that was. Like, what did that to us? What shined that light? Where did that come from? What was that? That'd be in my top 10. Like, if I could ask whoever created the universe
questions to be answered.
I want to know what that is.
Yeah. So jumping off of that, that's basically kind of a quick kind of overview of our more significant events that we've had up there. Kind of just a quick dive into the few, because there definitely was a few particular things that stood out. Like I said, we've seen it a number of times, but those few particular things, like those will always live in our memories.
Yeah, there was one time I was up there with my wife and I, and we saw like this comet going over, not a comet obviously, but like a meteor or something. Like, were you up there with us?
No, but I remember you telling me about it.
We were up there and it was like a meteor or something that went over our head. And I remember being able to look up and you could hear the sound of like a rocket ship, or like that kind of flaming sound, and like you could almost see the colors changing in the flame. Like, it wasn't like a just a shooting star. It seemed like it was really close. And I remember my wife at the time saying, my wife still at that time, she was my girlfriend, saying like, oh, she's like, it was like the mountain was shooting at us. It was just, it was kind of a weird, like, also just, there's a bunch of weird things that have happened up there. And there's so many weird things. Like, it's inspired a lot of like fiction. Josh and I were looking at the trailer earlier. There's a movie it's a IFC movie, an independent film channel movie called Alien Abduction. And it literally takes place up there. It is a 4.8 stars out of 10 on IMDb. So it's not exactly,
a very well reviewed rated movie by any means.
No. Yeah. It's not, it's not like a big budget movie, but it takes place up there. It's very Alien-esque, and
it's kind of, it's under the same vein of that, aliens as a thing are a threat, that they are coming here to abduct people.
Signs, that kind of thing.
That they're a bad thing.
Yeah. They're very, and like they're after you. For some reason, they really want this bumpkin family that is going up there to camp. Like they're the ones, or whatever. But borderline alien invasion. It's a weird looking movie. Josh and I haven't watched it. I think that could be some interesting content. Is like a cold like we should do like a Mystery Science 3000 or something on that.
Yeah.
And just talk trash about it maybe for our Patreon. But that's something that has inspired the Brown Mountain Lights itself, and that's 2014. That's actually when we saw that weird light up there.
I just noticed that.
I just noticed that too. But it's only an hour and 25 minutes. So you guys, if you are having a bad movie night, with your friends,
maybe check it out.
Maybe, check out Alien Abduction from the Independent Film Channel.
Right.
But so talking about all this, Josh's pictures, he published these videos, years ago. Yeah. And you begin to get a lot of, because it's there wasn't a lot of content on it. You quickly became one of the more popular videos on the internet, on YouTube, with those. And it was really cool. Josh is credited on Discovery Channel.
The Travel Channel.
The Travel Channel. Josh has credited photography on the Travel Channel because they emailed you and they featured some of your pictures in one of their
shows. The show was actually called Into the Unknown. And I think the particular episode, it was on season 1, episode 2, was about the Brown Mountain Lights. And so, they had contacted me to use some of my photos and my videos in the episode, which was crazy because it's wild to see, your name in the credits on a Travel Channel show.
Yeah, I watched that specifically just to be like, that's my buddy on the end, and I was there when those pictures were taken.
Exactly.
Which is also
and beyond that, the way we even found out about that was because your buddy who we had took up there texted you about it. He took a picture, he was watching the thing, took a picture of it.
Oh, that's right.
And then sent it to you and we're like, aren't these Josh's photos?
They had already paid you too a long time ago too, right? They paid you for it, and you just never knew that it was coming out.
I hadn't heard anything as of yet that they said we'll let you know whenever it's coming out, but they never did. And so it'd been so long I had kind of forgot about it. But
then Ben texted because he was up there when those pictures were taken too, specifically those like real blue ones that were moving in the sky and everything. And it's crazy. And then Josh is also, the fact that it's also there's been some authors that you've spoken to who have tried to kind of debunk your lights and have not been able,
right. They've had an interest in them as well. One of them particularly, a guy named Henning Kirsten, I believe is how you say it. He's from Germany. His name's Henning. He's an author. His main book that you can find on Amazon too is called The Dyatlov Pass Mystery, Not a Cold Case, which that's another interesting thing that we may dive into in a later episode. But some of the aspects of that case, there was some similar type of orb-like phenomenon similar to the Brown Mountain Lights that caught his interest and led him to my videos. And he ended up contacting me and again wanted to know about my story with the Brown Mountain Lights to get my my take on my experience and all this, and then really liked the photos that I had and stuff, and I think would be putting them in the next edition of that book.
In this, what is it, the 6th edition of the Dyatlov? So it's the Dyatlov Pass Mystery, Not a Cold Case.
Yeah, so my pictures will end up being in there as well, which is wild to think about, but really cool.
It is, and I think that book has a lot of stuff like plasma phenomena and ball lightning and all kinds of stuff. And it was something else you've been featured in. I know a lot of people have. Like, I mean, you've had a lot of interest from.
There's also been there's been some other YouTube channels.
Wendigoon, right?
Yeah, Wendigoon is another YouTube channel that on one of his videos that he put up, he featured some of my photos and mentioned my other personal channel, Arc Adventures, as having some of the best photos of this phenomenon that he's ever seen. So go check out Wendigoon as well.
Yeah, I think, or if you're from Wendigoon, come check us out, because I think he's like 2.1 million subscribers. Yeah, and we've got 7.
He's pretty big.
But yeah, Josh showed me that the other day. He's like I didn't even know. I started getting all these views again, and people are like, Wendigoon sent me, or I came here from Wendigoon's channel, and it is interesting. It is like such a weird phenomena that Josh and I have seen, and it's not like Area 51 or something like that, where people there's so many people that have their own stories about it, or whatever, that they like it would be hard to get noticed. Josh's pictures were good. They are compelling. They are good. They are compelling. And because of that, people have like looked at it, and I think people are like, oh,
there's been an oddly amount of extensive research done into my photos specifically.
Yeah.
Like the Henning gentleman I mentioned earlier, he had contacted me. He actually traveled over here from Germany to go to Wiseman's View to try and replicate my photos specifically. Like, my photos were why he came over here from Germany.
Yeah.
And he met up with another author, named Ed Spear, who's a very much of a skeptic. He's like a major skeptic in this kind of stuff. And he has spent many years up in and around Brown Mountain. He's hiked pretty much every trail there is up there, and seen lots of things related to it. But he is also, again, sides on the side of skepticism. So the two of them actually went and did extensive research where they tried to recreate my lights. They had one person on the mountain and one person on a Wiseman's View, with flashlights and headlamps and tons of different implementations to try and recreate a lot of the photos. Some of them, they got things that looked pretty dang close. And, after seeing that and going back through my photos, there's a handful of them that, looking at it in hindsight, yeah, I could see that could be a headlamp from something, or a campfire. That makes sense. But even they admitted that there's a few photos in there that they were not able to replicate, and they have no idea what they were.
Which is cool. And I think, so that guy, his book is by his author name on Amazon's Ed Spear, but it's Wade Edward Spear. And that book is called The Brown Mountain Lights: History, Science, and Human Nature Explained in Appalachian Mystery. Right. Contributions to Southern Appalachian Studies, number 40.
Right.
And so
he's got a handful of things too, I think. But yeah, that is just one of them I had pulled up here.
So, that's neat. Like Josh here, like nobody ever cares about my Instagram photos that I put up, but Josh has inspired somebody to travel from Germany, which is, and it wasn't even him catfishing somebody.
Right.
It was, they came out there, they saw it. It was compelling enough for them to come look at it. And, it's one of those things, like the day of, like the pictures that you posted. I don't know if you've altered the lighting or anything.
No,
in them.
Most of them I haven't done a thing to, except for outside of like maybe cropping them just to get rid of unneeded stuff. But that's about it.
That's the thing. They are pretty much the exact same thing, just on whatever, mode that you're looking at them on.
Yeah.
That we saw those nights on your screen.
On the screen.
After you zoomed in on them, and we said, well, this is spooky and we don't want to be here.
But yeah, I might even, I've even thought about trying to contact Henning again and see if we could get kind of an interview with him about that experience of him going up there to take those pictures and stuff. I think that could be interesting. Maybe do a Brown Mountain Part 2.
I think that'd be fun in Brown Mountain Part 2, or even us go back up there again and document. On location. Maybe that'd be a Patreon thing.
Yeah.
And add that to that, because I'm about to get my FAA license this month for my FAA license for drones too. Right. So that's something that also could come up.
Yeah, and a lot of people on my YouTube videos, a lot of people have commented, why don't you take a drone up there and just flying over it? And that would be fantastic. And I had that idea a long time ago, but those are also expensive.
They are expensive. And I remember when you and Ben went up there, I remember after that one, we were all like, we should do a documentary. I think I've even got the notes on my phone where I was like planning. I was like, because the creative, wannabe writer person. I was like, okay, I'll try to start scripting this thing out. Like, how should we have a drone shot going over, the mountains, talking about whatever, and like, should we have people on the other side trying to like, just kind of like Henning and Ed did, where they went out there and tried to recreate your things. Can we do that? Can we give explanations for that? And
and that might be something we still do in the future. We'll see.
Ooh, a Geek ETC documentary. I like it. But because we don't have any stake in the game. We don't know what it is. No. We know that people have been compelled by it for so long that there's songs about it.
Yeah.
There are bands named after it. There are entire, festivals related to it. Burke County Board of Tourism talks about it. There's even like a cool little North Carolina show on YouTube. Huh. And it does a really good one where they interview several people. They interview park rangers who have been up there. I went up there with Ben and our other friend, Alexander, and Alexander's father had been a park ranger up there. And he reported seeing glowing orbs going over his vehicle several times during his career. And then we saw them in the air that time. You weren't there for that one, but they were coming in out of the air behind Table Rock. And we were like, what? First I was like, oh, it's shooting stars. But then they would like come back out. So that was a really weird time too.
Jeez.
But you weren't there for that. So I'm not going to get too much into the weeds there, but he was there. Ben's seen them several times, and it was definitely one of those things that was a lot of fun. In hindsight, it was a lot of fun to do, but in like when you're actually there, there's a lot of spookiness
for sure. But another aspect of it that always kind of, I don't want to say, no, it didn't really bother me or anything, but that, any of those times that we did leave due to something being creepy or whatever, there was a small part of me that also was like, but what if we stay?
Yeah.
And like, I kind of want to just stay and see what happens though.
We're going to have to do that. We're on like, now that like there's like Facebook Live and Instagram Live, we'll have to do that when we get really scared. So that way we have people like keeping us company,
monitoring us,
us that can send
that's also
the cavalry up,
on the caveat that we still have signal up there.
Oh, that is an issue. Yeah. I've not been up there in a second though.
Been up there
maybe the 5G is really getting after it,
Maybe it has coverage up there. That's a good point.
Maybe the 5G, maybe that's what it is. Maybe this was just early 5G. Ooh. There you have it, folks. Verizon is the culprit.
Right.
One thing I'll say too is I don't have an idea what it is necessarily. I know you've done some you've done some looking, and you've definitely talked to these authors who have been explaining, like who seem to have done research, like good research on like plasma phenomena and like ball lightning and stuff. I will say that me and you both, from what I think we've noticed that these spring and fall months where like the temperature changes were definitely times when we saw a lot of activity.
Right. That's where we saw most of it. It was as it was warming up, just going into spring and April kind of timeline. And then just as it was starting to cool down, September, October, and fall. Yeah. That was definitely where we saw the most activity of all the times we've been up there, I'd say.
That was, yeah. So that's something like if you're ever on like vacation, you come to Western North Carolina, you go to Asheville for some reason, or you're camping, or you got a cabin in Eastern Tennessee, make the drive. If nothing else, it's just a gorgeous area to go see. And then maybe if you're lucky enough and you go camping and you're up in Wiseman's View, you'll have the ability to see something that you really can't explain.
Right. That would definitely be worth heading up there to take a look. I'd say you might see something you'll never forget.
I think we should do it. I think we should go back again soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's, what are we in? This is being recorded
March.
in.
So it's going to be March,
Yeah. This will come out in March. So we're not too far off, maybe another month or so before, it gets warm enough to head up there. So maybe we'll plan that.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
Be looking for that, folks.
For sure.
Is there anything else, Josh, you can think about it? Like anything else? Do you even want to hazard a guess what you think the lights are?
No, not at this point. I think I need more data. Again, I've seen a lot of weird. It's just still too unknown to me at the moment.
I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know either. I don't really understand like ball lightning well enough.
Right.
This is the first time Josh gave me his book that the German author, what was it, Henning gave you, which Josh's pictures will be featured in the 6th edition, the Dyatlov Pass Mystery, not a cold case. And I think it'll be interesting to, I want to look over this. I'm probably going to buy his book and take a look at it, because just skimming through it, it seems to be less, on a dark and stormy night, and more of like, look at these things that have happened all over the world, these strange plasma phenomena, and here's pictures of like aftermath and everything.
Right.
I think that's cool, because the Dyatlov Pass is definitely one of those things. It's definitely a huge mystery, whether aliens or Yetis or infrasound, or, whether they were spies and the KGB killed them, right? There's a million different things that people don't really get. And, for me, I don't know that it's not Cherokee ghosts. I don't know that it's not native ghosts. I don't know that it's not,
I can't say
aliens.
It's not any of those things as much as I, can't say that it is a lot of other stuff. Like, I don't know.
I can tell you that it's compelling.
Yes.
It's interesting. And it's definitely one of those things that, like, if you just hang out in your living room and you never go outside, which is fine, you can do that. But we've been out there. We've seen it with our own eyes. We've heard the sound of the river. We've seen the things. Our bodies have had these natural reactions where we're like, hey, this is bad.
Yeah.
This, like, your heckles go up and you're like, you turn into a feral animal.
Right.
And, like, roar, like I'm ready to just,
fight a light. And that doesn't happen to me a lot, No.
But people that are listening to us don't know me that well, but like, I like to think like I'm a normal, competent person, and for me, it was one of those things that, like, seeing it was definitely believing it, but also it instills this sense of wonder in you, like, what could that be?
Oh yeah. Ever since then, have had such a fascination with it, and I want to know more, for sure.
For sure. I think, hopefully this episode, you're welcome, because this episode is not 3 hours long, 3.5 hours long, like our last Dungeons and Dragons one was. But I'll say this, we have so much this will be a topic that comes up in the future. Mm-hmm. And I think Josh and I definitely will make the attempt to go out there and get some more stuff and bring it to you all, bring it to our listeners, bring it to our viewers.
Have more of a cataloging mindset going into it,
And to plug Josh's his personal page, Ark Adventures, ARK Adventures
on YouTube.
That's his YouTube channel. I think we'll probably be linking some of that stuff to our Geek ETC podcast YouTube.
Possibly, yeah.
And
some cross promotion.
There. But go watch it. Go see what you think. They're short videos. They're fun to watch. Josh has added some background music for it.
Yeah.
And I think you guys will really enjoy it.
For sure. Well, on that note, and speaking of checking our stuff out, go check out our social media pages, our Instagram and our Twitter.
At Geek ETC Podcast.
Yeah, both at Geek ETC Podcast. And then the YouTube channel as well, Geek ETC Podcast. And of course, as mentioned earlier, if you enjoyed this and want to help support it, go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/geeketc podcast. We would greatly appreciate the support, so we could help maybe, fund these future documentaries on paranormal things.
Fund these adventures. Maybe you can buy us some Nature Valley bars.
Hey, there you go.
That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, absolutely. Just remember, everybody, that like our community, the Geek ETC community, and we all fight better together. And if you're up alone in the mountains, bring one of your friendly geeks with you.
For sure. Alrighty. Thanks for listening, people. Keep geeking out.